Okay, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar. My name is Ian Bate and I work in the marketing team here at Milner Browne. Alongside me today I've got our presenter who is Richie Gaughan, who is one of our SAP Business One product experts and who works on our technical sales team. Richie's going to give you a quick look today at the B1 production add-on from the Milner Browne B1 apps range. He'll be specifically looking at the quick response entry tools and also the trial kitting facilities as well. As always with our webinars, what we'll do is we'll keep all of our attendees on mute throughout the presentation. However, we have got some time allocated at the end of today's demonstration for a quick Q&A with Richie. So if you do have any questions, you will notice there is a questions tab on the right hand side of your GoToMeeting toolbar. Please just send those through kind of as and when they come to you, and what we'll do is we'll store all of those for the end of the presentation and run through those with Richie. We will be recording today's demonstration, so we will happily send you across a copy if you'd like to send it onto your colleagues, etc. And just to let you know that if you do have any technical details or technical difficulties, I should say, you can always get in touch with us using the chat box or the questions tab that is monitored throughout the presentation, although we're not expecting any difficulties today. Okay, I'll pass over to Richie now and then we will catch up for the Q&A at the end of the demonstration. Okay, Rich.
Thank you very much, Ian, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today I'm going to go through and show some of the functionality of B1 production that we have for SAP Business One with regards to a couple of areas. One being trial kitting, which is really around checking components, checking availability of components, and the maximum amount of product that we can produce, where we would produce our own items. Then from there we will go on and have a look at the quick resource entry tool that we have. So this is really around recording times against processes and jobs that would be involved in making up these items, so that you can have an accurate reflection of planned times versus actual times and perhaps readjust costs, etc. From there. So let's get straight into it. First of all, I'm going to open up my item record and I'm going to go to an item that I've previously created here, which is a valve. So this valve is a finished item. It's a finished item that we make from several different components. Then we'll have someone assemble those components, put it together to make the finished item. So drilling into this here, if I right click and I can go now into my bill of materials screen, I can see that the components that I require to make up a valve are as such that are listed here within the bill of materials. So this is a very simple one, not very complex at all for demonstration purposes. I have a spring here, a body of the valve, a guide and a plug, and we take each of these components, one of each component is required to make up one valve. So it's a very, very simple bill of materials, nice and straightforward. We also have a couple of resource lines here. We need the assembly to go and put the items together, and we also have some quality assurance that we may do to check the valves working, etc. So I'll just reduce the quantity of that to something more practical. So we can update this bill of materials. So now we really need to come to, I suppose, the sales process. And when we're going through the sales process, we may have some of these items in stock, we may have components for some of these items. How do we go and check how we can fulfill sales orders, perhaps while we have a customer on the phone? So let's go into the sales order screen and we'll start to sell some of these items. Okay, so we'll open a sales order. We will select our customer from a list. In this case it's Maxitech that's called us. We will choose our item, which is the end product that we're looking to sell, half-inch valve in this case. And the customer's looking to have a quantity of 5 of these delivered. and you know they maybe want them delivered next week at some point or later this week. They'll put in tomorrow's date for this one. Okay, so now if I simply right click on here, one of the functionalities that we have within B1 production is this trial kitting feature. So if I go and click on this, what's actually happening now is we're looking at the demand that we have, and we're looking at what we have both in terms of finished stock and component stock. So let's go through and have a look at this. So we can see here from finished stock for this item, we already have 3 of this item in stock. But these 3 units have already been committed, maybe on another sales order, maybe on a production order for a larger item that involves valves, whatever it may be. In essence though, we don't have any of this available. So now really we're looking onto component stock. I can see here from my component stock section that I have enough components to make 8 of this item. So let's have a drill down into here and have a look at how this is made up. Okay. Oh, it seems to be having a think about things, so we'll let that think. And if we have this persist, we may just restart Business One. Yep, I do apologise, my screen appears to have become frozen now, so we will... Ah, okay, there we go, they seem to have come back to life now, so we'll just try that again. It certainly seems to be a little delay there. But what this screen will do is it will certainly go and launch a list of all these components. So this golden arrow will be looking up the list of components that we would have for the valve as per the bill of materials, and it will look at all of these individual quantities that we require. Now our example is very, very simple example where we only need 1 of each of the components. So it's very easy to calculate. But if we have multiples, perhaps we needed 2 springs and you know, different quantities and different ratios of components to go and build the final item. Trial kitting will look through all of that, and it will tell you the maximum number of finished items that you can make based upon the components that you have in stock. So here, since we have a 1-to-1 ratio on all of our components, we can see here that while we have 22 springs, 16 guides and 12 plugs, we only have 8 bodies. So in essence, the extras that we have on other components doesn't matter because we are restricted by the lowest common denominator in this case, which is bodies, and we only have 8 of those available. Hence, at the moment, we can only make up 8 of the finished item. Okay, so what that means is for my sales order, we certainly have enough components available to go and make the 5 that the customer has ordered. So they'll go ahead and do that. Sorry, I do apologise, my screen seems to be having a few issues. Okay, so we can continue now. If it were the case, just on the final screen here, if it were the case that we did not have enough components or finished stock to fulfill the order, these options here, which are currently grey because everything's okay, what would happen there is if we, for example, tried to place an order for 10, the system would give us the option to say, change to the total available stock including components, simply because we don't have enough to fulfill 10, so it would drag it down to 8 and simply read what is available in terms of total either from stock or just from using the components and stock. Okay, so we'll take this, and we'll have our quantity of 5 on the sales order. What we'd like to do now is, in order to go and make this, because we don't have any finished stock available, we need to go and create a production order. So we'll actually do that straight from within the sales order, and select the relevant options for procurement. So where we would buy an item in, this can launch a purchase order for you, and where we make the item, this can launch a production order for you. So we'll add our sales order, and this has launched the procurement confirmation wizard for me now. So I'm going to go through these options. I'm going to take the last sales order here, which is the one that I have been working on. The target document in this case is a production order. The system has recognized that we make this item, so we'll continue on. And we're only dealing with one item. We're not looking across multiple sales orders and procuring across the board. We're simply dealing with one. So these options are largely irrelevant. Okay, so we can see now that our production order has been created for the quantity of 5, and the relevant number of components and resources are now being used against that. Perfect. Okay, so we'll close some of these screens. Now, another part of B1 production is the ability to use the quick resource entry tool. So what we can do is we can record actual times against processes. Now, in order to do that, we need to take our production order and create something that we call a process order. A process order is capable of dealing both with very simple and very complex production scenarios, where, for example, we would have a nested bill of materials. So you make one item and it's used in another and maybe used in another. B1 production and the process order functionality is capable of managing everything between all of those different levels. So when you say, okay, I need to make a pack of valves, for example, B1 production can handle to say, okay, I need a bag to put 10 valves in, for example. I need a piece of card for the hanger, as well as the fact that I need to make up the individual valves. And B1 production can handle all of the component management and the process management around that as well, and keep it very simple. But for our very simple scenario, it will be very, very straightforward. So first of all, I'm going to go into the generate process order screen. And I can see here that my last production order is now visible. I'm simply going to convert that into a process order now. So I'm going to select the last box, click next. And I do have a couple of options here as to when I would like to plan for this. I could either backward plan from the due date, or I can forward plan from the start date. I have either option there. But I'm happy with that. I'm going to go and generate this now. And just give it a few seconds, then my process order will be generated. So the process order is really the document that we will interact with when it comes to recording time against particular jobs. So I'll just open up the process order here. There we go. Okay, so we can see here it's very similar to a production order itself. Anything with regard to materials is condensed into one line. Anything with regard to resources and any resources hierarchy, so that if we're making sub-assemblies, if we have other parts which go into larger parts, the full list of this would be visible in one display. Okay. Right, so next we go into the process order entry screen. This is the order screen here. So the idea that we have here is it's designed to be very quick and very efficient. We don't have a lot of clicking. We just simply have essentially what would be probably the scanning of a barcode. So we have two boxes here. Now I can go and take my process order, which I'll just go back and refer to the number. Okay, so this is process order number 62, and we have two different stages on here. One is assembly and the other one is quality assurance. So the way that this would work and the way that we would print this off, just using the standard Crystal report functionality, is we would take the process order with a hyphen, then the actual step number. So 62-2 would relate to assembly, and the system will recognise that. So if I type in here 62-2, now this I'm typing in, typically you would use this using a barcode scanner, and if I tab out of that, I then need to go and select an operator. So again, an employee with an ID badge would perhaps go and scan their ID badge to say, I am the person who is working on this job. My system here is actually set to work with my name for the operator, so I can go and choose that or select the operator from a list after the production has been complete. But now I have my process of assembly for the valve, which is the 1/2 inch valve, visible. Now I can now start this process and click on this, and we could see that this is a multi-user system. So while I'm working on this process, one of my colleagues can be clicking on another process and saying, yes, okay, I'm working on this one, you're working on this other one, and we can still use the same system but work independently of each other. I can pause this, and status is updated to be paused there. Perhaps if I'm going for a lunch break and working on a very large process, and I could also stop the process here. It records my time, and I can now list the quantity that I've produced in that time. So it's a very short time, but I can simply say that I have produced all 5. Perhaps I do it in stages. It may be that I do 3 now and 2 of these later. It's recorded the operator, and I can leave any remarks that may be required here as well. So this is the way that this works. It works the same way with regards to the next process as well, which is the quality assurance. So again, I would just scan my barcode, which would read 62-3. I go and start recording my time against this, pause it, stop it, and again I can go and complete and say how many have I inspected in that time. I've inspected 5 in that time. And this will then feed through back into SAP Business One. So if I refresh this process order screen and look at the transactions that are now based around this document, I can see here that I have some resource lines in here. So I have a resource time which issued time against the resource. We'll have a quick drill into that document. And we'll expand that so we can have a look. So we obviously issued a very small amount of time. But the idea around this is we have time, the time is of value. So you have components, you have time. If you have some large assembly projects or production projects, you may have at the end of the month not realised the value of this in terms of finished items, but you would still like to account for the fact that you've used time and you've used some components. We certainly don't want that to disappear off the balance sheet. So by issuing this here, we can see that if I look at the journal that's now been created for this issue for production, we can see that the work in progress account here has been debited, albeit with a very, very small amount. So this is the idea of issuing time against jobs. But what we do have here as well is we have the actual times. So we can compare these against the actual process times that we planned, and refine our bill of materials so that our production planning can become more efficient. Okay. From there is just really a simple process of of completing the production. So I'll close some of these screens. And if I go into my production order, I can have the normal functionality. There are a number of ways that we can complete production using B1 production. But simply going back to the regular functionality that we would have, we can simply record completion here in this case. And remember as well, folks, we do have the option in Business One to pick and pack and manage everything there for you. I'd like to go and add this document now. Perfect. So I've now completed my production. I can go back to my sales order, turn that into a delivery document, which I'll very quickly do. Just to complete the process, we'll clear some of these screens away. And again, the sales order itself can go through the relevant picking and packing process. We have the pick pack manager. Some people may just wish to take a sales order, turn it directly into a delivery, which I'm doing here. And now we've checked, so we've taken the sales order, we've checked the stock that we have available, we've produced the items that we have depending on the component stock that we've had available. We've now went and fulfilled the sales order from that perspective. And I can now go and look at my relationship map, which will take all of these documents, and I can see here that my sales order is linked to the production order, which is now linked to this sales delivery. I could also look at that from the production perspective as well. So I can see here that I now have the production order linked to the sales order, but I have a number of other production documents here. So I received the item in. Before that, I issued some time against the job for two particular processes, and issued components against the job as well. And that really completes the process. So that concludes the demonstration for today. And I would like to take any questions if any have came in, Ian.
Excellent, thank you, Richie. Okay, as Richie mentioned a moment ago, if you do have any questions, please send those in now. We do have 4 or 5 minutes of Richie's time before we wrap things up. So if you would like to ask him any questions about any of the features that you've witnessed today, please send those through and we will run through those now. Okay, Rich, a couple that have come in already, a couple of questions here. Does the add-on send an alert or a purchase order request if any of the components are not in stock?
It can do. Well, we can certainly look at anything in terms of sending an alert. So alerts can be based on queries within SAP Business One. So we can really look at anything. So it won't do it automatically with the add-on. It doesn't have the functionality to say, okay, we do not have enough components. Really what it's about saying is how many components do we have at this point in time. Now what we do have is we have tools like MRP. So we can look at the demand that you have in terms of sales that you currently have on your system. What MRP will be able to do is it will be able to say, okay, in order to fulfill these sales, we need to produce some items. And in order to produce those items, we need to have some components available. MRP will look through each of these stages and it will make a recommendation to you as to how many components that you would need to purchase in order to satisfy demand, and it will look at that in terms of dates as well. So this needs to be run manually. You can have something very custom and specific by using the generic tools that we have in terms of queries if you want alerts to happen. To be honest, what most people will do is run MRP periodically so that they can make sure that they're keeping up with demand. Anyway, I hope that answers that question.
Another question here. Does the data entry feed, does the data entry field feedback real-time data into SAP, or does it only update once you have pressed the stop button?
It will update. So let's go and have a look at this here. So it only updates once a process has been completed. So if I were to go and take this process and leave it open, so I'm saying I'm starting on it and 1 hour later I haven't completed it, it won't actually do anything with regard to SAP Business One. It's only when I complete a certain quantity. So what I can do is I can take a process, let's say I have to produce a quantity of 100. If I decide I want to go and produce 100, then I push the stop button. The system will say, how many have you produced? I say 100, then the transaction has been made in SAP Business One. I have another alternative as well, which I can say every time I've completed 5, I may want to push the stop button, say I have completed 5, and then continue on with the next 5, in which case SAP would have a transaction for each of the 5 that you've completed and record the time against that. If the transaction is currently open and running, so I push the start button and I don't do anything, SAP will not have any transaction until I report a quantity. So I need to report a quantity, the system will record the time, then the transaction happens in SAP Business One.
Excellent. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. We don't seem to have any more questions come in, so unless anything comes in within the next minute or so, we will wrap things up. Just to let you guys know, if you would like any further information or a more in-depth demo around B1 production, we'd obviously be more than happy to provide you with that. Just get in touch with your account manager. Or if you would like to send us an email, the best way to get in touch is at info@milnerbrowne.com. We do check that mailbox regularly, so we can obviously pass that on to your account manager, etc. That's no problem. And we can also provide you with a fact sheet as well. That's again, that's no problem. We can send you a soft copy via email. Okay, Richie, we don't look like we've got any more questions in, so we will thank you for your time today and your demonstration, and we will wrap things up there. We have got one final Wednesday webinar as part of this series, which is in 2 weeks' time, where we will be looking at the dashboards in B1 Analytics and how they can help you manage your data in SAP Business One. So please keep an eye out for your email invite. We will send that in a couple of weeks' time, and also there will be a link on the newsletter as well that we will send out to you guys next week. Okay, Richie, thanks very much for your time today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.